Well, thanks for logging on to Southern Indiana Weather. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Lots to talk about today. Big time pattern changes coming up, and one of the first things you notice, it was bitter cold today in some regards, I think. Um, Snow, sleet, and even some sprinkles around the area today. It was just a nasty day. That's all gone now, but check out this picture of sleet coming down in Ferdinand today that one of our Southern Indiana Weather viewers posted to our Facebook page, and another viewer posted some picture of some sleet here in their flowers as well, and it was just cold and nasty. And here's one that I actually took at my office of some snow coming down in Paoli today. So, wow. What can you say? Here it is, October, and we've already had our first snow. One thing to point out, just by way of fun, there's an old folklore saying that says, essentially, the first day that you see flakes fly, whatever that day is, that's how many snows you'll have in the winter. So if that pans out, we're supposed to have 24 snows this winter now. We'll see whether that flies or not, but take that for what it's worth. I know a lot of older people who have taken that to the bank, so we'll see if it's right. But regardless, snow is out of the picture for a while, and we're going to be on a gradual warming trend, at least. In fact, if you just take a look at the next 15 days from what the GFS ensembles, it actually warms us up to near 60 a couple days next week, and does start to moderate those temperatures out. So really just a couple more cold days in the 40s, and then we'll start to be there from moderate from there on out. Big thing that we want to talk about, at least in the near term, is the warm-up that we're going to entail next week, and that will come with a price, and the price may be some heavy rains. Here's what the GFS is saying as we just sort of put the surface map in motion. You can get an idea of where we're at with this. High pressure is going to take over tomorrow. That'll yield us just some bright and sunshiny skies. A cold northwest flow, so it'll continue to be cold and in the 40s tomorrow, but we'll have a slow warming trend through the weekend. But then as we put this into motion, you notice a storm system starting to brew out to our west, and as this inches closer towards us, we're going to have increasing rain chances next week. But as it inches towards us, you also know that our winds start to come from a more southerly direction, and of course that will mean that we end up having a much warmer flow about us as we go through. But as we put this into motion, here we are. Let's back this up. Here we are on Tuesday at 2 p.m. We've got some of that rain moving in according to the GFS, and really it sticks around for a while. By the time you get Wednesday coming in, notice this big storm system brewing out to our west. It really forms into the southwest and starts to move our direction. The models do different things with this. They make it a very strong one, though. We're talking 992 millibars here. That's a very impressive low pressure, and somebody is going to get some heavy rains with that if that verifies. And it continues to strengthen as it moves off, and this particular model right now splits it away from us, which would maybe cut off some of those heavier rains, but some of the earlier GFS runs actually had the low pressure tracking right over us, and some of those models were easily spinning out 6 to 7 inches of rain next week with that. So all that to say, there is just some wide variance on this, and the truth of the matter is this isn't something we're going to be able to nail down exactly. What we can nail down is the pattern. We know there's a big storm brewing. Exactly the specific details of that big storm we don't know yet. Here's what I do believe we do know. I don't think it's going to be a snowstorm. You laugh at me and you say, well, man, it's October. Are you sure it could be a snowstorm anyway? Well, we had snow fly today, even though it was very minor, and they actually had a couple inches fall in northern Indiana. So yes, it is possible. But I believe that we're going to be on the warm side of this system, and all indications are for that. If I just give you a little bit of a different perspective, we'll take a look at what the European model is showing for this, and we'll just put this into motion. We'll start out. Here we go. We start out high pressure, large and in charge for the weekend, and then we start to see the first little hints down here of this storm system brewing, and then we get this big time storm system coming in, and you see it dumps some pretty heavy rain for us as well. Notice the low pressure develops over here in the southwest, similar to what it does on the GFS. Then it starts to track over into the Missouri, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska border. And then it sort of tracks up into Illinois and Wisconsin and continues to move away from us in a very similar fashion to what the GFS said. Again, this keeps us on the warm side of the quadrant, but I want you to notice the day. Here we are at Friday at 8 a.m. And so the big, heaviest bulk of the rains come on Thursday night into Friday with this system. Whereas with the GFS model, the big heaviest of the rains actually are through on Thursday afternoon, and by the time Halloween evening comes, it's all done. Not so with the European model. If the European model has its way, we're looking at a wet Halloween night. So again, the timing on this is going to be one of those issues that we have to work out. We could also take a look at the Canadian, the CMC model, the GEM, and it shows a very similar pattern. The low develops over here, and notice that it tracks in a very similar fashion over here. But notice this actually has it moving through in a very similar fashion with the GFS. It moves this in. The cold front's passed us at 8 a.m. on Halloween day, and then it's moved on out. So Halloween with this particular model run would be dry for the kids. So really right now the European model is lagging it a little bit further behind than what we are with some of the other models, and really with the good agreement between the Canadian and the GFS, I'm sort of leaning towards those models for now, and I think maybe the European might sort of catch up to where those are leaning right now. Or it could be the exact opposite way. I mean, the European could be right and the other two models could have it wrong. And really, this far out, we're talking essentially 7 days from now. So lots will be worked out with this. As far as severe weather goes with this, it goes back and forth. The overnight, the 6Z model run gave us, of the GFS at least, if I just go back here and I show you the 6Z model run of this, my word, this booger, if I can get it to work here, this gave us, I believe it was a 6Z run, gave us a pretty healthy storm system. Yeah, here we go. I mean, this would be classic severe weather setup right here. A 995 low, I mean, that is just a super storm. This would be like, I mean, you know, this would be like a tropical storm on land, so to speak. You would have very strong winds along with this. You've got a powerful cold front along with this. I mean, you would have you've got a little bit of a negative tilted trough with this type of a setup. I believe you could end up with some severe weather around here. But then if you put it to what I just showed you a minute ago, and the current run of it, it's well far to our north, and instead of being right here in this low, now it starts to take it up here, and we just end up with a heavy rain scenario instead. So the reality is much can be worked out over the coming week. So let's not overhype this for what it is. It's going to be a big storm, but let's, as I said, let's not make this more than it is. One thing that we do want to take a look at is the jet stream. That's the driving force behind this, and get an idea really how strong this storm system is, and whether we get severe weather or not, or whether we see any wintry precip on the back side of the system. In large part is going to depend on what we see with the jet stream. And so here we are right now. You see a fairly large dip in the jet stream, and that's essentially what this bright colored line is right through here. You've got your polar jet stream down in here, and then right down here you've got your subtropical jet stream, which brings in warm moist air, where this brings cold and drier air in from Canada with this. And so essentially right now we've got that cold air filtering down in here. But as we put this into motion, you notice we start to level out a little bit, and as we look at the 7-day forecast in a little bit, you start to see that we're going to go back into the 60s next week. So we do indeed level out a little bit. Notice this little dip in the jet stream. We're starting to get a cutoff low developing on each branch of the jet stream. And as you put this into motion, if it'll decide to go into motion, what you see is essentially that cutoff low continues to spin down there, and the feature that will take over next week more during this time, instead of the polar jet stream, which really is running out of the picture up in here and more like this, What we have here is more of a subtropical jet stream controlling us. So a warm, moist flow, and you've got certainly a strong upper level low pressure here to support that surface low. So you're going to have warm temperature surging in. Now we're not talking 70s, 80s, but we are talking 60s, along with dew points into the 60s. So that's certainly enough to give us a heavy dose of rain, if nothing else. Severe weather, maybe not off the table yet, but it's certainly no definite at this point yet. But just kind of note that that pattern is going to be there, and we are going to moderate temperature-wise a lot more. And you can see that if you just take a look at the temperature spread over the next couple of days. We're talking about 29 from what the GFS is saying tomorrow morning. We do have a freeze warning over all the area in effect to us both for tonight and for Friday night as well. And then as you put this into motion, you see, yeah, we stay cool for a little while, but then notice the return of the warmer weather. By the time we get into next Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, we could be potentially talking about mid to upper 60s as we go throughout this time period, with low temperatures only falling back down into the upper 40s, maybe even into the 50s some nights. So that'll certainly be a refreshing change from what we've had, and that's more of a return to normal temperatures. Well, actually, we're a good 15 degrees below normal today, whenever we only reached a high of 43 here in Huntingburg today. Our normal high should be about 64, so goodness, we're almost 20 degrees below normal today. How much rain are we talking about? That may be the big story. If you believe what the GFS is saying, a good 2 to 4 inches of rain certainly possible with this system. So could be a severe weather event, but it's more likely that it could just be a heavy flooding rain event. So something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Real quick, I also want to talk a little bit about the pattern going ahead from here on out, because I do believe while we're going to have a little bit of a warm-up in store for us, we're also going to have a potential cool-down coming back again. What you have, here's Japan, here's China, and you have two typhoons brewing out there right now. Typhoon Lekima, which is a super typhoon at the moment, and then you have Tropical Storm for Francisco, been downgraded. It was a pretty strong typhoon and is weakening. Both of these are actually going to be forecast to recurve back towards Alaska with time, and so if you just take a look at Tropical Storm Francisco, you see that pattern. It curves back towards Alaska. The same thing with Super Typhoon Lekima. Eventually it will weaken and recurve back towards Alaska. Timeline-wise, it would be at least Sunday before it starts to the northern tip of Japan here. So we're talking about, by the time it carries itself into the jet stream, probably Sunday to Tuesday before it starts to recurve back into here. And of course, what does that mean? Well, remember, we're talking about something called the typhoon rule. And the typhoon rule says when you have typhoons out here that start to recurve back towards Alaska, that eventually will cause a dip in the jet stream over us, and that'll mean big time changes in about 6 to 10 days. So really what we would be looking at is anywhere from that first week in November. So anywhere from the 2nd or 3rd of November all the way through the 7th would be whenever we're looking for a cool down. And the GFS ensembles maybe show that a little bit. You're going down from near 60 degrees to the lower 50s. So they're not showing a big time cool down yet. But that's something that we'll want to see whether they catch on to or not, because what we're experiencing right now with this big cold weather is actually the result of a couple of typhoons that recurved from Japan, and the typhoon rule came into effect, and here we are a week and a half or so later, and we're experiencing this big time cool down from them. So we will watch that first period of November. Don't be surprised if you see the GFS ensemble starting to cool that time frame down. I'm kind of expecting it. But in the short term, we've got some cool weather to deal with. I'm forecasting an overnight low of 28 tonight. Again, a freeze warning is in effect for the entire area, and it's in effect until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. That'll also be in effect on Friday night into Saturday as well, and that should pretty much end our growing season. 49 for a high tomorrow with sunny skies. As you go into the extended forecast, you notice we warm up to in the mid-50s by Sunday, and then finally a return to the 60s as we go into the extended period. And again, Tuesday and Wednesday and even Halloween Day on Thursday. Much is in question about that, but all 3 days look fairly rainy at this point, but with mild temperatures in the 60s. So we'll continue to monitor the situation, and we'll continue to do these videos, and as things change, we'll bring you more information as time goes on. But look for some potential heavy rains along with the warm-up next week. Enjoy your cold night tonight, and don't forget to allow yourself some extra time in the morning, folks. For Southern Indiana weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Until next time, have a great day, folks.